Hello guys and welcome, it is ThatSrb2DUDE here today bringing you yet another Splatoon 2 video. Now today we are going to be doing a little comparison video on how the Explosher compares to all the other Sloshers in the game. So we're going to go into it. So first, before I use this thing, I'm going to use all the other ones just to show you guys how they work. So you got the Slosher at first, short range Slosher, doesn't shoot that far, and I guess the fire rate of it pretty fast. You know, you can do things like this. Use one of its 3 Sloshers to attack enemies. Now you have the Slosher. It's a little different. I guess the traditional Slosher has medium range. Its fire rate is a little bit slower than the Slosher. But, you know, basically your traditional Slosher, the original. So that is the Slosher for you. And then we also got the Sloshing Machine. Has splash damage as a Slosher. Has also directs. Has direct hits. Or you can hit people directly with it. So it kind of acts like a blaster in a way, but it doesn't, like, of course, completely kill people. It's kind of like a rapid blaster, but in the Slosher form. That's basically what the Slosher, or the Slosher Machine is. And then you finally have the Explosher, which is completely different, but has very, very similar stuff with the Sloshing Machine in particular. Now, I've shown the Slosher, I've shown the Slosher, but in general, with this video, we are only going to be comparing the Sloshing Machine with the Explosher, considering both of these weapons have somewhat of the similar, I guess, similar characteristics. With this one being the first one. Well, if I can actually hit my shot. There we go. So, this weapon has splash damage. So, if you was to, I guess, shoot next to your opponent, they'll receive splash damage. So, it's kind of, like, similar to that in a sense. Now, the first thing I noticed when using this weapon is that the fire rate is very, very slow. Very, very slow. So, I'm just going to shoot a couple times, and just to show you how slow this fire rate actually is. So, if you notice while I'm actually shooting, there's like a few frames, or quite a few frames actually, while I am just standing still, but continuously pressing the, I guess, the shoot button. Now, we're going to compare the range of the Sloshing Machine and the Explosher. So first, I'm going to pick up the Sloshing Machine, because it's obviously less range. So that's the, I guess, the furthest range you can shoot with the Sloshing Machine. I'll just shoot a couple more times just to show you. Now, we're going to get the Explosher out, just to show you how far this thing can actually shoot. Pretty far. Now, just to show you a fair comparison of, I guess, one Slosh with each of them. So that's the Sloshing Machine. Here's the Explosher. It's going to go much further, but it's going to do a much bigger explosion. So this whole radius is the amount of ink that's being produced by an Explosher. And this little radius right here is completely nothing compared to what the Explosher is. So right there and then, the Explosher paints so much more on impact. Its line isn't as ink efficient compared to the, I guess, the Sloshing Machine. It's not as consistent, but its explosion definitely makes up for it. Now, I'm going to show you what killing with this weapon is like. So this, I'm going to just show you what the, I guess, the Sloshing Machine can do. So, Sloshing Machine, you know, splash damage like that. Also direct hits and splash damage, or just 2 splash damage. Now, the thing is, as I did say, that the Explosher has very, very similar characteristics like the Sloshing Machine, as it also does splash damage, but it is very, very different in terms of actually hitting directs, or getting a direct hit with the Slosher, or the, I guess, the Explosher, whatever you want to call it. Now, if I was to try and direct, let's just do it with this one, just to, you know, have the same thing. If I was to hit a direct with the Explosher, this is what's going to happen. So, what's going to happen is that the direct hit's going to go right through my enemy target. And what it'll always deal 55 damage if it's a direct. This is something you really need to remember. Whenever you shoot at somebody directly, it's technically not a direct hit, even though it is. It's not like a traditional direct hit like, I guess, how the Sloshing Machine is. It's not like critical hit where you get more damage off. But if you hit a direct hit with the Explosher, just expect that this shot is going to go right through your opponent. So, if I had people lined up like this, this is what's going to happen. My shot is going to continue to travel. And as you see, like, the ink blasters over there. if I'm a little bit more accurate with it, I can get 2 hits, or 2 direct hits like that. So basically has a piercing mechanic, just like how charges are. It has a piercing mechanic where the slosh will go through your opponent and always deal 55 damage. Now, this is something you also got to remember. I guess, if you really want to get the most out of this weapon and the most damage out of this weapon, is that once you're shooting at someone, you want to make sure it's a direct hit and they also receive splash damage. So, if I was to jump, like that. So it's going to be a thing where you get a direct and you also get splash damage. That way, you're going to always perform 90 damage to an opponent. So, let me just show you here. Like, it's the exact same thing, even if it's a piercing thing. So I can get 2, I can hit this target right here for 55, and I can also hit this target here for 90, because the slosh is going to end at this target, and it's also going to go through this target. So let me just show you that demonstration, or if I can do a better one. There we go. So shot went through that, shot went also went through this, but it also exploded on this target here. So in that sense, it was able to do 90 damage. Now, that was a lot of information to really, like, give for the Explosher, but it's something that you really need to remember. And it's also, like, I guess, something that you probably want to imply to your, or implement into your gameplay as well. Of making sure that you always get some sort of direct hit to deal the most amount of damage to your opponents, or at least pierce them with some damage as well. Because that's basically the best way you're going to be able to take people out. Otherwise, this weapon's going to continue to be a 3-hit kill the majority of the time. Now, you gotta really be careful, because this is something I was doing last night on my stream using this weapon. I was using this weapon completely wrong. Don't do this. Don't do this. Don't shoot your sloshes into the air like this, and then expect to try and get splash damage that way. Now, why I say that is because this is the slowest way you'll ever hit somebody, and this is much harder to, like, I guess, determine if you're gonna get a direct hit with your slosh, or I guess the direct hit onto your opponent. Because as you can see, if I'm just shooting all the way upwards, I'm most likely only gonna get splash damage. Unless I hit them directly, of course. But that's the thing. I can only get them directly if it lands directly onto the person. So if I hit it, like, I mean, it's not even easy doing it right close to it. I have to make sure that my slosh is, like, completely landing on my target here. And if it doesn't do that, then it's going to be splash damage. So doing this, it's kind of ineffective in a way. So make sure you don't do this too much if you're using the Explosher. You want to always make sure that you're trying to pierce your target and also get splash damage at the same time. So you want to make sure that you're hitting your targets like this. Always trying to go for the 55. Or trying to go for the explosion hit as well. You always want to make sure that they're getting hit like this. Like, it can be a thing where you're hitting the wall instead and piercing them. So you really got to use your crosshair more than anything to really hit things, or really be very, very, I guess, effective with this weapon.
Now, you need to be really careful with this weapon, as it is very different compared to the majority of weapons in this game. Now, why I'm saying this is because this weapon is purely a painting and support weapon. The matchups of going against a close range target is bad for this weapon, to the point where you don't want to be in close range situations. You want to be able to help your teammates, give them ink, give them support from afar, and make it slightly easier for your teammates to actually take the enemies out. In a way, this weapon works a lot like how a burst bomb would work, where you can throw a burst bomb really far, but you're just using it to stun people, instead of trying to take them out, unless they're really low on damage, of course. One thing I want to also mention that you might want to be really careful with when using this weapon is try to avoid getting into inkjet battles, or avoid getting too close to people that have inkjets. Because remember when I said if you get a direct hit on somebody, you also want the explosion to also deal damage to them as well, so it does 90 damage. Now, considering when you throw a slosh and the projectile from the slosher goes out very, very slowly, it's going to be insanely hard, first of all, to try and get 2 hits on a flying inkjet that can move around in the air ever so freely. So straight up, inkjets against explosives are very, very strong. Explosives are very, very weak to inkjets, so try to avoid it as much as you can. This weapon paints extremely fast, so make sure to take advantage of using your bubbles whenever you can just to put paint down. Not mainly for just like, I guess, getting a kill or something, but just to put paint down, because you could probably get another bubble really fast in the next few seconds.
Now, if there's any kind of tip I can give you guys when using this weapon in particular, is always wear Object Shredder. You need to wear Object Shredder. Now, I guess this example is not going to do it too much justice, just to show you, I guess, in a testing range, but I'm just saying, from me to you, make sure you have Object Shredder if you are using the bubble variant. When I guess the next variant comes out, it's not going to be as important, but this variant, it's going to be important. You are going to need the Object Shredder because this does not pop the bubbles fast. This weapon does not pop the bubbles fast unless you are wearing Object Shredder. Plus, when you're getting into situations when you need to, I guess, fight opponents and such, if your opponents are shooting down your bubbles, it's going to be a lot harder to keep your bubbles, I guess, afloat or lit, or however you guys want to call it. That's all I got to say about this weapon. It's a pretty interesting weapon compared to the other ones. Just got to really remember of making sure that you get at least a direct hit. Direct hit to, I guess, direct hit to explosion is probably your best outcome, but you don't want to get splash damage with this weapon. Otherwise, it's going to be very, very slow to actually take people out. So make sure that you're getting a direct hit. Make sure that you're also hitting your opponents with the explosion at the same time as your direct hit. Otherwise, you're going to be doing 3-shot kills very, very slowly, and you're just going to be like, well, I could use pretty much any other weapon in the game and get a 3-shot kill much faster. So, pretty much, that's all I got to really say about this weapon. Really, really interesting. Hope you guys enjoy it. It probably, I mean, at this point in time, I'd say it's a little too early to say if it needs a buff or a nerf. At this point, the only thing that concerns me is, I guess, the amount of lag there is after a slosh. That's a little bit, uncomfortable in a sense. Maybe it's a thing that people have to get used to, but I'm just saying right now it may be a thing that might get I guess buffed in a sense, making this Explosher just a little bit faster for, I guess, people to use. But yeah, that's pretty much all I've got to say for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed. Please, if you did, please like, favorite, comment, and subscribe to the channel if you have not already. Follow me on Twitter and Twitch, both in the description below. Do it for both if you're feeling generous. And as always, guys, has been ThatSrb2DUDE. And I shall see you guys in a future video.